His Excellency David Hurley, Governor-General of Australia, and First Lady Linda Hurley, Their Excellencies, Special Envoys, and Heads of Delegations, His Excellency, Most Reverend Charles John Brown, and the esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, Vice President Sara Duterte, President Fidel Ramos, President Joseph Ejercito Estrada,
ang mga salita upang
President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Senate President Vicente Soto III, and the honorable members of the Philippine Senate, House Speaker Lord Alan J. Velasco, and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo, and the honorable justices of the Supreme Court, of course, First Lady Lisa Araneta, and my children, Alexander, Sandro, Simon, and Vincent. I cannot proceed without a special greeting, of course, to the former First Lady Imelda Romualdez Marcos, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, ang aking minamahal na mga kababayan, magandang tanghali po sa inyong lahat. This is a historic moment for us all. I feel it deep within me. You, the people, have spoken, and it is resounding. When my call for unity started to resonate with you, it did so because it echoed your yearnings, mirrored your sentiments, and expressed your hopes for family, for country, and for a better future. That is why it reverberated and amplified as it did, to deliver the biggest electoral mandate in the history of Philippine democracy. By your vote, you rejected the politics of division. I offended none of my rivals in this campaign. I listened instead to what they were saying. And I saw little incompatibility with my own ideas about jobs, fair wages, personal safety, and national strength, and ending want in a land of plenty. I believe that if we but focus on the work at hand and the work that will come to hand, we will go very far under my watch. You believe that too. At pinakinggan ko ang tinig ninyo na ang sinisigaw ay pagkakaisa, pagkakaisa, pagkakaisa. We will go farther together than against each other, pushing forward, not pulling each other back, out of fear, out of a misplaced sense of weakness. But we are the furthest from weak. The Filipino diaspora flourishes even in the most inhospitable climes, where they are valued for their quality. The changes we seek will benefit all and will shortchange no one. I was not the instrument of change. You were that. You made it happen. I am now. You picked me to be your servant, to enable changes to benefit all. I fully understand the gravity of the responsibility that you've put on my shoulders. I do not take it lightly, but I am ready for the task. I will need your help. I want to rely on it. But rest assured, I do not predicate success on the wide cooperation that's needed. I will get it done. I once knew a man who saw what little had been achieved since independence. in a land of people with the greatest potential for achievement, and yet they were poor. But he got it done, sometimes with the needed support, sometimes without. So will it be with his son. You will get no excuses from me. I am here not to talk about the past. I am here to tell you about our future. A future of sufficiency, even plenty, of readily available ways and means to get done what needs doing, by you, by me. We do not look back, but ahead, up the road that we must take to a place better than the one we lost in the pandemic. Gains made and lost, opportunities missed, well-laid plans superseded by the pandemic. Indeed, ours was the fastest growing economy in ASEAN by ways now outdated. We shall be again by a radical change in the way the world must now work to recover what we have lost in that fire and move on from there. We face prospects of the spread of the war abroad, of which we are totally blameless. We seek friendship with all. But countries like ours will bear the brunt of it. And if the great powers draw the wrong lessons from the ongoing tragedy in Ukraine, the same dark prospect of conflict will spread to our part of the world. Yet, there is more out there. Like going forward by new ways of doing that the pandemic forces to adopt, a stronger resilience, quicker adaptability. They are our best prevention. They are our best protection. Quiet reflection in a rough and tumble campaign of a breadth and intensity never experienced revealed some of them, such as a willingness to listen despite the noise, the hesitation to quarrel over differences, and to never, ever give up hope of reconciliation. These gave me the peace to ponder deeper. There are hints of a road not taken that could get us out of here quicker to something better, something less fragile. There is also what you, the people, did to cope. But this time empowered by new techniques and more resources.
Here are the members of the House contingent
You got
Joint
by
Canvassing Committee.
getting some of what you needed with the massive government help. And for this, I thank my predecessor for the courage of his hard decisions. But there is a way to put more means and choices in your
Senate
hands.
Secretary Myra
trust
Marie, House
the
Secretary
Filipinos.
General Mark Leandro Mendoza, and House Sergeant at Arms Brigadier General Rogelio.
Imagine how much more
Locson.
you'd achieve
Now,
if
our
government
guest
backstops
is,
instead
former
of
Senate
dictating your
Secretary
decisions.
Gardo Barbo.
Always there to
Secretary
pick you up when you
Barbo
fall.
was, Senate
Giving what you
Secretary
need
when
to get past a
for
problem.
the recently held
Imagine
national
if it
elections
invested in your
after he took,
self-empowerment to bring it
his,
closer to
oath
taking
of
on
office this
whatever
lunchtime.
challenges
He is
come.
now President Bongbong
Imagine
Marcos.
a country that, in almost every sense, is you. Now imagine what you and government can achieve together. We did it in the pandemic. We will do it
It's
again.
history coming full circle.
But again,
The Marcoses
I will
officially
not
returned to
predicate my
Malacanang.
promise to you
36
on
years
your
had passed
cooperation.
since Ferdinand
You have
E.
your
Marcos
own
was
lives to
ousted
live,
by the People
your
Power
work to do,
Revolution.
and there too I will
Marcos
help.
and his family arrived
Government
at the
will
National
get as
Museum
much done
to
alone
take his oath
without
as president
requiring more
about
from you.
half an hour before
That is what government
noontime.
and public officials are for. No excuses. Just deliver.
Actress Tony Gonzaga
It was like
sings
that
the national
once
anthem,
upon a time.
followed by an interfaith prayer and a military and civic parade. Senate
I did
President
not
Tito
talk
Sotto
much
then
in this
reads the
campaign.
resolution proclaiming him
I did
as
not
president.
bother to think of
Chief
rebutting
Justice
my
Alexander
rivals.
Hesmundo
Instead, I
administers his
searched
oath,
for
marking the
promising
beginning of his
approaches
term
better
as
than the usual
nation's
solutions.
17th president.
I listened to you. I did not lecture you who has the biggest stake in our success. And the forthcoming State of the Nation will tell you exactly how we shall get this done.
In his inaugural
In this
speech,
fresh chapter
President
of our
Bongbong
history,
Marcos expresses
I
gratitude
extend my
for
hand
the mandate
to all
that his supporters
Filipinos.
gave him.
Come,
He's also inviting
let us
every
put our
Filipino
shoulders
to
to the
help him
wheel
steer the country
and give
to a
that
place
wheel a
better than
faster
how it
turn
is.
to repair and to rebuild and to address challenges in new ways to provide what all Filipinos need to be all that we can. We are here to repair a house divided, to make it whole, and to stand strong again
He did not mention
in the
much about
Bayanihan
his
way,
father. Some
expressive
critics
of our
thumbed down
nature
the
as
candidacy of
Filipinos.
President BBM
We
due
shall
to the
seek, not
controversies
scorn
that happened
dialogue.
during his father's
Listen
regime.
respectfully to contrary views. Be open to suggestions coming from hard thinking and unsparing judgment. But always from us,
He also
Filipinos.
discussed the challenges
We can trust
the
no one
country
else
is
when it
facing,
comes to what is best
particularly
for
in
us.
sectors of agriculture, energy, health, among others. President Marcos, however, has yet to appoint cabinet secretaries for some key departments. The new president also acknowledged his predecessor Rodrigo Duterte for his administration's achievements, especially on infrastructure. He vows to continue most of such projects and present a comprehensive infrastructure plan for the next 6 years.
Never forget, we are Filipinos. One nation, one republic, indivisible.
Alexander Sandro Marcos.
So what do we have here so far outside the National Museum of Fine Arts? We're still seeing organizers disassembling tents that were used for the inauguration. This particular road in front of the museum will remain closed until 11 in the evening. Some motorists, however, are not aware that this is closed for tonight, at least until 11 p.m. That's why they're trying to pass through unsuccessfully, and traffic authorities are advising them to search for and follow traffic advisories. Back to you, Pia.
Rex Remigio there reporting from the National Museum in the city of Manila, where Bongbong Marcos took his oath as the 17th president of the Philippines. Now, lawmakers and allies expressing their support for President Marcos following his inauguration. House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez says Mr. Marcos will be a great president. The lawmaker believes Marcos will play a pivotal role in uniting the nation. Romualdez is a cousin of Marcos. He's also poised to be the next House Speaker. One Pacman representative, Mikey Romero, says it's time to rally behind the new president's goals for the country, stressing that Marcos' success is everyone's success. Senator Joel Villanueva, meanwhile, thanks Marcos for acknowledging the need to prioritize job creation, training, and fair wages. Villanueva vows to coordinate with Marcos' economic managers to address the needs of the labor sector. After over 3 decades since a peaceful revolution toppled the regime of the late former President Ferdinand Marcos, the Marcoses are back in Malacanang. Our AC Nichols joins us live. AC, what is the first thing Mr. Marcos did in the palace?
Pia, as tradition dictates, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. in his first act as the country's new leader administers the oath of cabinet members and other appointed officials this afternoon. Now, there's something unique about it, as the president also administers the oath of his son, Sandro, as the elected 1st District Representative of Ilocos Norte, among other elected local officials from their home turf.
Else will I be able to swear in as president our mayors, our congressmen, and our officials from Ilocos Norte. So sinabi ko kay Sandro, dalhin mo silang lahat dito kahit na papano para masabi ko naman na sinumpa ko ang aking anak na naging bagong congressman at lahat ng kasama natin dito sa Ilocos Norte.
Traditionally, the new president holds his first cabinet meeting on the same day of his oath, but Marcos is doing that tomorrow instead. Now, there's information that he had courtesy calls lined up with a number of foreign dignitaries before the inaugural dinner tonight, and that celebrations here in Malacanang are set to conclude with a fireworks display, though Malacanang has yet to confirm these details. Towards the evening, the new president's activities inside the palace are not open for media coverage. We are basically just monitoring developments from the Malacanang Press Working Area, which is a separate building within the Malacanang compound. Our movement, if we may say, is very limited due to tight security, but we're still trying to get more information from various sources, and we will share them with you as soon as we get them. Pia.
Yeah, AC, before that oath-taking happened and with the other cabinet officials, tell us also about this, what we call the ceremonial possession of Malacanang, the moment when the new president ascends that famous staircase for the first time and what it means.
Yes, from the National Museum at around 3:30, we saw the Marcos family, the new first family of the Philippines, arrive here in Malacanang, and they were given arrival honors this time by the Presidential Security Group. This supposedly symbolizes that the PSG is now ready to protect the country's new first family. From there, actually, bigla nga silang inulan habang naglalakad pa lang sila dun sa main yard ng Malacanang Palace, umulan, and buti naman nabigyan sila agad ng umbrellas. And then we see the new president go up or ascend the main staircase of Malacanang, and this supposedly signifies or shows that he has now reached the highest official or government position in the land. So from there, we saw him lead or administer the oath of his cabinet officials, as I reported earlier, and then the oath of his son, Sandro. And unfortunately, after that, Pia, RTVM's live stream or broadcast of the inaugural ceremonies have ended already. So right now, we're just trying to monitor the developments by asking our contacts kung ano na yung mga nangyayari, especially since the inaugural dinner is supposed to begin at 7 p.m. tonight. But like I said, wala na tayong nakukuhang live feed. So we're just trying to get more information, and we will give them to you as soon as we get them. Pia.
Interesting also, AC, a while ago you said the new first family, you corrected yourself there. It'll take a while for everyone to get used to this because now we'll have to start saying the former President Duterte and then President Marcos, the new first family. AC Nichols there reporting live from Malacanang. A new official portrait arrives in Malacanang as President Marcos begins his 6 years in office. This presidential painting was created by renowned artist Lulu Coching Rodriguez. It features Mr. Marcos in a barong with the Philippine flag behind him. Rodriguez also painted the portraits of former presidents Joseph Estrada, Fidel Ramos, and even the Aquinos, Cory and her son Noy Noy. President Marcos hits the ground running as he looks to continue the independent foreign policy of the Duterte administration. How will this approach be different, and how will the Philippines balance its relations in the next 6 years with two superpowers, the United States and China? Tristan Odalo reports.
As the chief architect of the country's foreign policy, Bongbong Marcos faces a balancing act as president. The United States wants a stronger economic partnership with the Philippines and upgrade the long-standing military alliance with Manila amid rising tensions in the South China Sea.
The United States remains committed to standing with the government of the Philippines, and we have spoken up against infringements of the Philippines' sovereign rights.
Both sides acknowledge the need to update the Mutual Defense Treaty and Visiting Forces Agreement.
That the U.S.-Philippine alliance has been left behind. The elevation of the BSD, the restart of EDCA.
From one superpower to a regional power, China also sees the Philippines as a key partner, promising a new era of bilateral relations.
I'm confident that, guided by our two leaders, China-Philippine relations will be brought to new heights.
Manila has filed a number of diplomatic protests against Beijing over territorial incursions in the West Philippine Sea. The Duterte administration counts around 300 of such protests. Marcos makes it clear his administration will also assert the country's territorial rights.
We will not allow a single square, and we even make it smaller, a single square millimeter of our rights to be trampled upon.
Despite the differences, Chinese ambassador to the Philippines Wang Zhilian adds, the maritime conflict is a small fraction of the overall bilateral relations. Marcos even says that China is a crucial partner toward recovery.
Our strongest partner has always been the People's Republic of China.
Marcos Jr. should play his cards well in engaging with China and the United States. His actions must be erudite and strategic at the same time.
President-elect Bongbong Marcos takes office at a time when the region is encountering a number of geopolitical flashpoints. The balance of power between the US and China, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and North Korea's nuclear arms tests, among others. How will the new administration address these issues, not to mention the global food crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic that shows no signs of waning? An independent foreign policy must be responsive to these challenges, mindful of the national interests. Tristan Nodalo, CNN Philippines.
All eyes on the newly installed President Bongbong Marcos as martial law survivors take their oath to continue their decades-long fight for truth and human rights. While a change has come for former President Rodrigo Duterte, who is now a private citizen. More when we return on this special edition of Newsnight here on CNN Philippines. You're watching a special edition of Newsnight hours before another Marcos was sworn in as the 17th president of the Philippines. Martial law victims held their own oath for the country at the Bantayog ng mga Bayani in Quezon City. Anjo Alimario tells us survivors made a promise not to let the horrors of the dictatorship be forgotten.
They refuse to be silenced. They will not be drowned out by the voice of the majority. Victims of martial law under the dictatorship of former President Ferdinand E. Marcos band together for panunumpa para sa bayan. Their stand is clear: guard the truth against tyranny, falsehoods, and trampling of people's rights and freedoms.
Wasakin ang pambabaluktot at kasinungalingan na malawakang nilikha't pinakalat pabor sa kandidatura ni Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
Thousands were killed, tortured, imprisoned, and went missing during the martial law era. The Marcos regime was eventually toppled by people power in 1986. 3 decades later, the Marcoses are back in Malacanang. Protesters say they are appalled how the Marcoses refuse to acknowledge what may be the darkest period in the country's modern history. The newly installed president previously said he has nothing to apologize for. Survivors admit they are a vanishing breed. That's why it's important for them to pass the torch of truth to the youth.
Huwag na huwag baluktutin ang kasaysayan. Huwag na huwag kalimutan ang nakaraan at ipagpatuloy pa rin ang katotohanan para sa kalayaan.
The younger generation is ready to take on the challenge. They feel that the bigger enemy now is disinformation.
We learn from our past. We learn from yung mga mistakes na, 'di ba, na sana hindi na siya maulit muli.
Seeing the Marcoses return to power is a nightmare, martial law victims point out. They warn that if such narrative and myth go unchallenged, no one will be left to tell their stories. I'm Johnny Mario, CNN Philippines.
The fight also continues for protesters rejecting the new administration. Page of Air takes us to Quiapo in Manila, just a few kilometers away from the National Museum, where a number of groups took to the streets to protest the Marcos presidency.
Not even the scorching heat and change of plans can stop protesters from making their voices heard on Inauguration Day. The rallies of progressive groups ended at the historic Plaza Miranda in Quiapo instead of the original venue, the Liwasang Bonifacio. Police earlier asked them to change location to avoid possible clashes with supporters of President Bongbong Marcos. While Marcos was taking his oath, the rally went on in Quiapo.
Wala pong pagdiriwang sa atin ngayon. Pagluluksa meron.
Among the groups that spearheaded the rally were Bayan, Kilusang Mayo Uno, the Alliance of Health Workers, Kilusang Magbubukid, and Transport Group Piston. Rejecting the return of a Marcos in power, martial law, and historical revisionism took the spotlight at the protest.
Ngunit talagang ang mga nang babaluktot ng kasaysayan ay walang pagkatuto sa kasaysayan. Ang paglaban ng mamamayan noong panahon ng martial law ni Marcos ay hindi nagmamaliw.
They also laid down their pleas to the new government. First, address the rising prices of fuel products and basic goods. Increase the salaries of minimum wage workers. Better support our farmers and health workers. And defend human rights and press freedom.
Hindi po pwedeng unity ang sagot sa nagtataas ang mga presyo. Kung meron mang dapat unang executive order itong Pangulong ito, dapat may kinalaman sa ekonomiya.
With former President Rodrigo Duterte now an ordinary citizen, the groups vowed to hold him accountable for all his previous actions. They ended their protest peacefully at around noon by claiming the fight for change and justice has just begun.
We'll be watching and responding or reacting whenever the president of the government will take any pronouncement, all they are ready to go protest every step of the way.
Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Supporters of President Marcos did not miss the chance to personally witness his inauguration. George Cahilas reports thousands of them spent hours waiting at the Intramuros golf course just across the National Museum in Manila.
As early as 5 in the morning, supporters of the newly inaugurated President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. gathered at the Intramuros golf course, a venue that can accommodate 300,000 people. Authorities say around 5,000 supporters arrived. Most of them were wearing red, the color associated with the Marcos family. While the golf course was big enough for them, some supporters were not satisfied. They also occupied Liwasang Bonifacio ahead of the scheduled protests there. This prompted various groups to push their rally farther from the inauguration site at Plaza Miranda in Quiapo. It was hot and sunny despite the anticipated rainy weather. During the inauguration proper, some of the supporters were not able to contain their emotions.
Napakahalaga, sir. Kasi sir, sa abang panahon, nabigyan din po ng hustisya ang paggawa ng pag-apil sa pamilya Marcos po nung araw.
Medyo natutuwa lang ako. Medyo nagagalak at natutuwa na halong emosyonal kaya napaiyak-iyak ako nun. Sobrang saya ko lang na siya yung naging Pangulo ngayon.
The crowd cheered during the speech, especially when the president spoke of unity and having similar aspirations with the people. Amalia Mutiak came all the way from Lanao del Norte just to watch the inauguration. While it's not mentioned in the speech, Mutia is hoping that the new president will focus on the welfare of Muslims, especially for those who lost their homes during the Marawi siege in 2017.
Sana po ngayon, tutukan niya ang Marawi City para malaman niya at maibangon uli ang Marawi City sa aming kapwang mga Muslim. Dahil nakasaramdam ko ngayon sa Marawi ay hindi pa po sila nakabalik sa mga bahay-bahay nila.
Supporters are optimistic the new administration will fulfill its campaign promises, that Filipinos will rise through unity. George Cahilas, CNN Philippines.
Celebrations were low-key and simple in President Marcos's hometown of Ilocos Norte, but supporters from other provinces went out of their way to mark Inauguration Day. Let's head over to Ilocos Norte with senior correspondent Lois Calderon.
Ilocos has been known as Marcos country because for half a century, the Marcoses ruled this province as governor, congressman, and mayor, and now again as the highest leader of the land. But on this historic day, Batac, the hometown of the Marcoses, is quiet. True to form, Ilocanos made the celebration simple. The City Hall set up 2 big LED screens at Imelda Cultural Center, one of the landmarks of the town center. Together, barangay officials, City Hall employees, and supporters watched President-elect Bongbong Marcos take his oath at the nation's capital. Some were even moved to tears.
Nawala ng gutom namin nung nakita namin yung screen na mayroon. Takbo kami dito po. Nakakapanindig balahibo sa akin. Maasahan may malaki kaming paghasa sa kanya.
In Lawag City, tarps with the face of Marcos and congratulatory words were hanging prominently on the Capitol building and other government offices. From Congressman and first son Ferdinand Alexander Marcos, better known as Sandro, to governors and mayors, elected officials from Ilocos Norte and Ilocos Sur, were in Malacanang to take their oath en masse. Interestingly, Marcos' landslide victory has been attracting people to Ilocandia. Former teacher Josephine Bustria of Pangasinan brought her entire family to Batac. This family traveled all the way from Davao City to Vigan in time for the inauguration. In Vigan, business is brisk, with one popular restaurant owned by the Singson clan also preparing to host VIPs on Marcos' Inauguration Day. The restaurant manager has been working there for 2 decades and has met the Marcos family several times. We ask what food BBM often orders.
Pinakbet, longganisa, bagnet, ganyan po ang in-order nila noon nung pumupunta siya dito.
I am giving him the 100% benefit of the doubt that he could lead this nation very well, this country very well.
Authorities deployed police to secure Batac's landmarks, including the Marcos Museum, amid reports that vandals could make a scene in protest of Marcos's victory. Nonetheless, it was a peaceful day for most of Ilocanja. From Batac, Ilocos Norte, Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
Up ahead, Davao City is welcoming former President Duterte home after 6 years. We'll get details on his homecoming on the ground and find out what netizens are saying about today's inauguration. You're watching a special edition of Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Presumptive President or President-elect Bongbong Marcos's days as an ordinary citizen will soon come to an end. The same goes for his running mate, presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte, who will serve as the country's next education secretary. The Senate and House of Representatives convening a joint Congress to form the National Board of Canvassers for the two highest elected positions of the land, ignoring a petition at the Supreme Court to cancel BBM's certificate of candidacy. Now, in this episode, we will walk you through the canvassing process and why it matters. Good evening. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. Now, before we go to the canvassing, let's talk first to Cavite Representative Boying Remulla, who is a member of the House contingent to the Joint Canvassing Committee. But at the same time, and this is really why we're speaking to him tonight, he has just been named as Justice Secretary of the Marcos Cabinet. Good evening, Congressman Boying Remulla. Can we begin with this? So you're a re-elected, you want a fresh term as congressman. What's going to happen to your position? Who's going to take your place? What happens next?
Via the law, under the law, there are two options here. One is a caretaker can come in to deliver the funds to my district, whatever funds are allocated by the government. And the other one is for a special election to be called, which might be better because
Yung bagong pa naman ngayon ay yung ano bang mga kaayuhan niya sa una, sundin nila ang pagbabago.
Kulang yung 6 years kay Tatay Digong. Idol namin siya sa buong OFW. Siya ang pinaka-the best.
President Rodrigo Duterte is expected to arrive here at the concert area, but so far we have not seen him. Security is tight at the moment. And earlier, before leaving Malacanang, the former president urged the public to help and support the new president, President Bongbong Marcos. Back to you, Pia.
Tristan Nadalo there reporting live from Davao City. Bidding farewell to her post, former Vice President Leni Robredo thanks her supporters online. Robredo calls it an honor to have served in the last 6 years. She says, quote, "Tinanglawan natin ang landas ng isa't isa, diretso lang tayo para mas marami pang matanglawan na iba," unquote. Today, her Facebook page also went from Vice President Leni Robredo to Attorney Leni Robredo. Robredo's daughters had their own messages of gratitude, with Jillian tweeting she's happy to have her mom back full-time. Trisha Robredo also posting about her mother leaving the VP role, saying, quote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginnings," and unquote. Attorney Leni Robredo set to launch her NGO Angat Buhay tomorrow in Quezon City. Well, apart from being the country's new president, Bongbong Marcos is now the chief of the Agriculture Department. During his inaugural speech today, he said he will prioritize food sufficiency, similar to what is being done in the richest free trade countries. Melissa Lopez highlights some challenges that lie ahead.
I think that the problem is severe enough that I have decided to take on the portfolio of Secretary of Agriculture, at least for now.
It is a president's way of nipping an issue in the bud, and Bongbong Marcos taking on leadership of the Agriculture Department will somehow assure the nation that food will not be denied to the Filipino because it is no longer affordable and supply is short. The food crisis is a clear and present threat. Farms and pens are grappling with diseases that kill livestock. Piggeries suffer from African swine fever infection, while poultries with bird flu. Across the board, food prices have been on the rise, worsened by high fuel costs and low production. The Duterte administration's agriculture chief admits the sector has been neglected with limited funds.
Ang agrikultura talaga napabayaan, Maricho. That's why this is stunted growth. That's why hindi pa rin tayo makapagbigay ng maraming post-harvest facilities and the like. Parang second-class citizens ang tingin ng sektor ng agrikultura, ng mga farmers. I mean, the farmers are not properly supported.
Ironically, the food producers remain poor. Farmers are barely recovering after 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. They earn just half of what factory and service workers make per day. They blame Agriculture Secretary William Dar for their condition, while importers have a different plea.
Pondo para sa mga indemnification, para suporta modernization, smuggling, titigil, importation, malilimitahan. Ako, naniniwala, lahat agad na magsasaka, magiging masaya.
It's very difficult for us to get an import permit, but we don't have enough food for not only the local population, but we also need to look after the requirement of industry, of meat processors. We also need to look after the requirement of hospitality, HORECA, hotels, restaurants, catering. We need to really become systematic and try to remove all these bottlenecks and allow the trade to flow.
In one of his earlier pronouncements, then President-elect Bongbong Marcos said rice could sell for 20 pesos per kilogram, but farmers say it may not be a fair price.
Hindi siya doable ngayon. Best makukuha mo is 33, 34. Kung merong support ang gobyerno, tutulungan mo sila ng either through cash incentives or i-subsidize mo yung farm inputs niya, particularly fertilizer dahil sobrang mahal ngayon ng fertilizer.
Dar says the staple could possibly sell for 27 pesos and 50 cents per kilogram, while the Agricultural Alliance of the Philippines says 30 pesos is good enough. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
In other news, former Camarines Sur Representative Rolando Nonoy Andaya Jr. has died. His family did not provide details on the cause of death this morning. They're asking for prayers and space to grieve privately. Andaya previously served as House Majority Leader and Budget Secretary. He lost in the 2022 gubernatorial race to Luigi Villafuerte. Andaya was 53. And the Supreme Court temporarily stopping the substitution bid of former COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon as a nominee of the party list pushing programs for persons with disabilities and senior citizens. The group won a seat in Congress. The High Court issued the stay order Wednesday in light of a petition filed by Duterte Youth Party list officials. Guanzon has 10 days to comment on the petition. A check on the weather now. A low-pressure area east of northern Luzon has intensified into Tropical Depression Doming. Pagasa says Doming is seen to move north-northwestward over the next 3 days and remain far from landmass. It may further develop into a tropical storm before exiting the country by Saturday morning or afternoon. But for the next 24 hours, Doming, as well as Tropical Storm Chaba, formerly known as Kaloy, will enhance the southwest monsoon. That means rains are expected over the western sections of central and southern Luzon and the Visayas. Palawan, Occidental Mindoro, Pangasinan, Zambales, Bataan, and Batangas will experience moderate to heavy rains. Light to moderate with at times heavy rains will prevail over Metro Manila, the rest of Mimaropa, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Tarlac, Pampanga, La Union, Aklan, Antique, and Iloilo. Pagasa warns of possible floodings in these areas. Straight ahead on this special edition of Newsnight, we get the thoughts of people here in Metro Manila about the new president's message to the nation. Plus, mixed views online about the turnover of power to Mr. Marcos today. We'll give you a look after the break. You're still watching a special edition of Newsnight. Earlier today, Filipinos nationwide watched as President Bongbong Marcos took his oath to lead the nation and imparted words of hope. What did people think of his inaugural speech? Pauline Versosa reports.
Here at this tricycle terminal in Pasig City, drivers and commuters alike tuned in to the inauguration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at high noon. Many of them are pleased to hear the promise of a better future in the inaugural speech of the new chief executive, with the words unity and pangarap or dreams sticking with most of them. But not a few were unable to comprehend the 30-minute speech of Mr. Marcos.
Okay na rin kahit di mo intindi. Parang maluwag-luwag din sa amin sa kalooban yung mga salita niya.
English kasi international language yan eh. Ibig sabihin, marami rin na mga bansa nag-abang sa kanya sa pamumuno niya. Eh, kung Tagalog lang, tayo lang mga Pilipino ang ay international nakapokus sa kanya, di ba? Kaya dapat English din. Hindi talaga makaintindi gaano. Pero hindi naman mataas yung English niya, mga tama lang kayang intindihin.
I'm proud to, as Ilocano, kasi Ilocano siya, no? So, nakita ko naman speech niya talagang I'm very proud. At sana lahat ng sinabi niya, lahat ng hope ng mga tao, ay kahit hindi naman mapatapos, at least maumpisan niya.
Masaya. Kasi gagawin niya lahat eh. Putingnan din natin sa huli.
Hindi ko maintindihan kasi English eh. Dapat tinagalog niya para maintindihan naman namin. Eh kung Tagalog, di madami tayong masasabi ngayon. Sana matupad yung mga sinasabi niya, mga pangako niya. Yung gasolina, ang hirap ng buhay ngayon. Kita mo, ang tagal namin makalis. Walang pasahero.
Ngayon, sana ipagpatuloy niya ang kanyang proyekto rito sa Pilipinas, katulad ng kanyang ama.
Mapagtuunan po sana ng pansin ng bagong Pangulo natin ang ating sa pagkain, about sa pagkain, lalong-lalo na din po sa gasolina. Umaasa po kami. Umaasa po ang sambayan ng Pilipino po.
Umaasa kami na bababa yung mga bilihin natin kasi para makaginhawa naman tayo.
Siguro naman yung pagtaas dati, nakokontrol ni Marcos yung pagtaas ng gasolina. Siguro ngayon magagawa niya yan. So siguro wag tayong magmadali, mga 2 taon, 1 taon, mababago niya lahat yan. 100% ang tiwala namin dyan. Kami, hindi na kami nag-aangad yung ibibigay ng mabago lang yung ng gobyerno, ayos na sa amin yun.
More than words, Filipinos are putting immense trust on Mr. Marcos as he begins his presidency, marking a new chapter in the lives of more than 100 million people. Pauline Verzosa, CNN Philippines.
Netizens also had a lot to say about today's inauguration, with different opinions circulating on social media. Some admired President Marcos' speech, saying his message about unity and the Filipino people being indivisible should be the country's mantra. There was also rejoicing at the Marcos family's return to power. This netizen called Imelda Marcos a, quote, proud mama. But some people voiced their disappointment, saying that the EDSA People Power Revolution ousted the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos to, quote, restore freedom in the country, and now his son takes on the presidency. Tony Gonzaga's rendition of the national anthem was another hot topic. This netizen says it sounded like, quote, an authoritarian hymn rather than a nation's hope, unquote. Hashtags like Our President Marcos Jr., PBBM, and Pilipinas trended on Twitter today. To cap off the celebrations today, Mr. Marcos is set to attend the Pasasalamat Concert 2022 on Mendiola Street in Manila, a stone's throw away from Malacanang, at 9 p.m. The so-called People's Concert will feature the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra and award-winning pianist Cecil Licad, whose music education was sponsored by Marcos's mother Imelda at a young age. The event is meant to give thanks to the president's supporters. More live shows, this time for K-pop fans. Veteran boy group Super Junior is coming back to Manila. The Super Show 9 Road World Tour heads to the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay this August 6. Tickets go on sale by July 17. The Sorry Sorry Singers last performed in the country in 2019. Now, for 17 fans, you can get passes to the Be the Sun concert in Manila as early as July 12. The fan club pre-sale begins at 10 a.m. that day, while Live Nation's pre-sale is on July 13. General on sale kicks off July 14th. Is that general admission? And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for a special edition of Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. We leave you now with the sights and sounds of today's historic inauguration of President Bongbong Marcos.
This is a historic moment for us all. I feel it deep within me. I offended none of my rivals in this campaign. I listened instead
Presumptive President or President-elect Bongbong Marcos's days as an ordinary citizen will soon come to an end. The same goes for his running mate, presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte, who will serve as the country's next education secretary. The Senate and House of Representatives convene in a joint Congress to form the National Board of Canvassers for the two highest elected positions of the land, ignoring a petition at the Supreme Court to cancel BBM's certificate of candidacy. Now, in this episode, we will walk you through the canvassing process and why it matters. Good evening. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. Now, before we go to the canvassing, let's talk first to Cavite Representative Boying Remulla, who is a member of the House contingent to the Joint Canvassing Committee. But at the same time, and this is really why we're speaking to him tonight, he has just been named as Justice Secretary of the Marcos Cabinet. Good evening, Congressman Boying Remulla. Can we begin with this? So you're a re-elected, you want a fresh term as congressman. What's going to happen to your position? Who's going to take your place? What happens next?
Via the law, under the law, there are two options here. One is a caretaker can come in to deliver the funds to my district, whatever funds are allocated by the government. And the other one is for a special election to be called, which might be better because it will just be the beginning of my term, and there's a lot of time left. 3 years is a long time to have no representative in Congress. That's why, well, hopefully, we'll be able to work out a special election for my district.
All right. When we speak about you being Justice Secretary, by the way, no. When were you told that you would be Justice Secretary, or matagal nyo na itong pinag-usapan ni BBM even before the election or right after?
Pia, I didn't apply to be secretary, kasi first of all, I really ran to be a member of the House, and I was expecting to become the majority leader of the House. That's already an arrangement that was being worked out with the presumptive speaker. But actually, 2 or 3 days after the elections, I was called by the president-elect to his home, and we had a conversation where he told me that he wanted me to serve as his Justice Secretary. And Pia, as a lawyer, I can tell you it's every lawyer's dream to attain the rank or status, but it's not the point. The point is really to be able to help the government run things. Probably my leadership style might be compatible with the leadership style of the president. And it's just a dream for me to be able to serve in this capacity. And with the problems the country has, somebody has to step up, and I'm willing to take a challenge for this.
Can you give us an idea of what you're going to be doing as Justice Secretary? Like, what kind of program? What are you going to focus on? Are you going to, like, for example, look very well into the prosecutorial service? Other DOJ programs?
Well, the DOJ is a very, very big department, Pia. First of all, what do you have there? You have the Land Registration Commission. We have the National Bureau of Investigation, Bureau of Corrections and Criminology, and so many other offices. I mean, name it, the DOJ participates in every government activity. So there's so much to do. And the most important thing probably is the rate of prosecution, acquittal and conviction that is happening right now, where there are jails, when we talk about overcrowded jails, it's because of the slow pace of justice. So probably it's about time that we audit one thing that the first things we can do is to audit all of the detention prisoners to see if they're allowed, they can be freed already, to decongest the jails, and for those that have to be prosecuted to work double time. Pia, there's a saying, diba? May sinasabi nga, and justice for all. Eh dapat dito ang hustisya para sa lahat talaga, sa mayaman at sa mahirap. Ang nangyayari, ang nagdudusa talaga, yung hindi masyadong, yung walang kaya sa buhay. Kaya kinakailangan bigyan natin ng pag-asa ang taong bayan. Ang hustisya ay naroon para sa lahat. Para sa lahat, mayaman, mahirap, lahat ng Pilipino ay dapat magkaroon ng hustisya.
And justice for all, it's good you brought that up because, for example, there are plenty of wrongful convictions, for example, or there are people who we know we should be in jail or in prison and are out scot-free.
Yes. Maraming rin nakakulong na hindi dapat nakakulong. At marami namang napapawalang salan na may kasalanan talaga. Kailangan talaga bantayan ng gusto, Pia. Dito magkakasubukan dahil ang bigat kasi na kagaya ng NBI, kasama natin ng NBI. Kagaya ang kalaban namin dito sa DOJ, sindikato, di ba? Hindi lang sindikato, mga Pilipinong gustong wasakin ng bayan natin, mga mandaraya, lahat ng uri ng criminal activity sakop talaga ng aming mandate. Kaya talaga we have to hit the ground running and to make sure that all of these things are really solved. Marami kasing pwedeng ma-solve na hindi na-solve dahil hindi hands-on ang ibang tao sa trabaho nila. O kaya, medyo ang institusyon ay walang mababa ang moral, minsan walang budget, at minsan talaga kakonsyaba ng sindikato yung iba. Kaya iayos natin ang lahat. Itama ang mali. Sabi nga ni Ping Lacson, yun, kailangan natin gawin lahat yan.
Okay. In the immediate aftermath of the election, napag-uusapan kasi yung, for example, if BBM were to push his unity theme, his unity campaign theme beyond the campaign and moving forward, that would there be that possibility of the new Marcos administration looking into, for example, the cases against Laila de Lima, who was and very clearly anyway, was a very severe critic of BBM himself?
Well, that would be part of the continuity of the job that I will have. Alam mo naman, Pia, is about institutional continuity. Just like the presidency or any department, kailangan tuloy-tuloy ang trabaho niyan. So those cases left hanging, we have to resolve. And everything, if there is a need to review, we will review. Pero, yan, lahat yan, kasama yan, Pia. Politics or no politics, ano yun may kaso talaga yun. Wala tayong magagawa. Ang magagawa lang natin dyan, siguraduhin lang natin na tama ang ginagawa ng justice system sa lahat ng inuusig. At yun ang kailangan natin gawin, ang karapatang igalang natin. Lalo na ang ating constitutional rights.
Well, yun ang importante, to do what is right. Kong Boying, also, we have a minute and a half to go before we let you go because I understand you do have something to attend to. Let's talk very quickly about the canvassing. So you have that petition to cancel yung COC ni BBM pending before the Supreme Court, but at the same time, it is all systems go for the canvassing. You have a 31 million votes for the president-elect and equal number of votes also, give or take, for Sara Duterte. So Dire-diretso lang ito, hindi po ba? The canvassing, as a matter of fact, people are saying perhaps by Wednesday evening or earliest Thursday, we could have a proclamation already.
Well, we hope that we can finish everything by that time. Ano kasi, Pia, it is our constitutional duty to do this. Hindi naman ito binigay sa Korte Suprema para i-desisyon kung sino magiging presidente ng Pilipinas, di ba? Ang saligang batas, sinabi, the National Board of Canvassers shall be constituted. Kaya gagawin lang namin ang aming tungkulin sa abot ng aming makakaya. Kaya lahat ng sistema ang ginawa namin ngayon dito sa House ay very transparent. And one of the reasons why today I announced that I already admitted that I accepted the invitation of the President to join the cabinet is for transparency's sake, no? Kasi kasama ko sa Board of Canvassers, baka mamaya ito na naman, meron na namang alingangungaw. Ito, we're being transparent, Pia. Pero ito naman kasi, this was set up a long time ago under the leadership structure of the House, as it is under Speaker Velasco. Kasama talaga ako dyan sa listahan niya nung araw pa. But it's better that I disclose it prior to the canvassing para naman no one
can say anything na.
Diba?
Well, there are 31 million votes for BBM. And lastly,
yes.
Final words from you.
Ang ginawa namin dito, talaga in the spirit of transparency, there's a space for the lawyers, there's a space for the media, everything is being guarded bipartisanly. Kaya lahat ng pwedeng gawin nandiyan na. And then under the rules that we will adopt, talagang yung rulings nito will be both the Senate and the House will agree on the rulings. If there are objections, then they will be resolved accordingly under the rules that we will adopt.
All right, final words?
Well, marahil ang isang dahilan kaya tinanggap ko ang hamon na to ay gusto ko talagang sabihin sa tao, no? Sa tagal ng aking paglilingkod sa Justice Department, sana mahalin natin ang bayan natin. Ang problema kasi, the nation state is under threat from big business interests. The Filipino should be proud of his country. We should not shoot ourselves in the foot. Tama yung space. Kaya nga bagay kami ni Pangulo, sabi niya, magkaisa tayo. I believe that. But, yun nga, sana naman, yung mga hindi nagwagi, matatapos ang canvassing na, ay tanggapin na at bigyan ng pagkakataon na maglingkod na maayos ang mga taong nahirang ni Pangulo at lalong-lalo na ang ating President-elect BBM. Sana bigyan naman kami ng pagkakataon na maglingkod. Alam ko na may babatikos, sanay naman tayo sa batikos, pero tingnan natin with an objective eye kung kung talagang tama ang ginagawa namin para sa bansa natin. Diba? Isang bansa sana tayo. Yung unity is really important to our country at this time.
Congressman and soon-to-be Justice Secretary Boying Remulla, thank you very much for being with us tonight, sir. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual, expeditious, transparent, and credible. That is how House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco is describing what is expected to be the canvassing process for the 2022 presidential and vice presidential elections. Now, before we begin, here are the members of the House contingent to the Joint Canvassing Committee. Over to the Senate. And the team that binds our lawmakers together, Senate Secretary Myra Marie, House Secretary General Mark Leandro Mendoza, and House Sergeant at Arms Brigadier General Rodelio Hoxon. Now, our guest is former Senate Secretary Lutgardo Barbo. Secretary Barbo was Senate Secretary when Neni Pimentel was Senate President. That was back in 1998 to 2001. And in 2016 to 2018, when it was Kanene's son, Coco's turn to be SP or Senate President. Secretary Barbo, Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Although you were not Senate Secretary at the time of the canvassing for any of the national elections, whether it was 92, 98, 2004, 2010, or 2016, you did have that experience when it comes to congressional canvassing. Can you do a little bit of reminiscing for us? And, at the same time, describe the differences, because dati manual tayo, and then ngayon automated, since 2010 automated.
Number one, hindi na masyadong makikita sa automated yung mga mali-mali na mga sinusulat. Halimbawa, tatanungin, hindi yan, yung boto na yan ay para sa ganitong tao. Except siguro kung sabihin na may item sonams or identity of ballots, identity of names, item sonams. At saka ngayon, mabilis na dahil sineshade na lang. Wala nang isinusulat na mga pangalan. Kung minsan yung pagsulat, hindi pa maintindihan. At noon, medyo mabagal talaga. It took a few months, hindi lang weeks, para malaman kung sino talaga ang tunay na nanalo. Pero ngayon, masyadong mabilis. In fact, so bilis, sabi nung iba, na nabibigla sila.
Kanina nga kausap ko si Boying Remulla, sabi niya, dati nagre-reklamo tayo pag mabagal ang canvassing, ngayong mabilis. Yung canvassing o yung bilangan, nagre-reklamo din sa ano ba talaga. Pero I mean, napakalaking bagay na automated, hindi po ba, sir?
Oo, totoo. Totoo yan na siguro there can even be improvement of the automated, imbis na shading, kasi marami pang kwan dyan. Minsan hindi tinatanggap ng machine. Kung halimbawa, yung, alam mo, may mga matatanda na medyo gumagalaw-galaw na yung kamay, lumalabas na sa circle na isi-shade. At yun ay kino-consider ng machine na marked ballot at minsan hindi kinakount yan. Siguro yung iba dyan, yung kagaya sa Europe at saka sa Amerika, pinipindot na lang. Pindutan na lang.
Parang ATM. ATM na lang.
Parang ATM, oo. Ngayon, ang concern din naman dyan ng ibang tao, madali magkaroon ng corruption, especially yung mga naboto, nabili na boto. Yung votes. Yung nabili na boto, votes. And then, you can never erase suspicions. Some of the suspicions are reasonable, and some are totally baseless. But perhaps the prime consideration is the counting, and of course the vote honest, safe, and was it an exercise of sovereignty, not a prostituted vote as a result of bribe money, yung mga ganon.
Okay. Well, Secretary, so when we say congressional canvassing, of course, hindi ang balota ang tinitingnan ng Senate and House in joint Congress ng National Board of Canvassers, but yung mga certificates of canvass, and yun yung in-inspect, and yun yung nagiging basis ng congressional canvassing, no? When we think about that, what should people expect in the next few days?
Pia, I think people should expect to find monotony in that because alam na nila kung sino ang nanalo.
Yes.
Alam na nila kung sino ang nakalalamang. In fact, alam na nila kung sino ang number 2, sino ang nag-number 3. Kasi sa COMELEC ay hindi naman na-proclaim, Yan ay ano ba tawag yan? The COMELEC counted.
Yes.
Now, but the COMELEC has no authority to proclaim the
That's right.
presidential and the vice presidential. Hanggang senatorials lang sila. Because under the Constitution, kailangan ang the National Board of Canvassers, yung Senate at saka House, ang magpro-proclaim ng winning
Yes.
presidential at saka vice presidential
Oo. So,
candidate.
Secretary,
Kaya monotonous yan.
Secretary Barbara, we're just going to have to take a very quick break. More when we return. This is Politics as Usual. We are on our final stretch, the last 6 minutes of the show. Still with us, former Senate Secretary Lutgardo Barbo. Sir, itong pending petition to cancel the COC of BBM at the Supreme Court, Tito Soto, for example, SP Tito Sen, no, and Senate Minority Leader Frank Drilon have said that this should not be, and I'm paraphrasing them, this should not be affecting the canvassing. Matutuloy yung canvassing, it won't really matter in the end. Is that how you see it also? Dapat diretso lang tayo sa canvassing?
I think so. Kasi under the Constitution, sinasabi na not more than 30 days, dapat i-convene yung National Board of Canvassers. In other words, the Senate and the House are under obligations to organize themselves and check into the winners of the presidential and vice presidential candidates.
And whatever the Supreme Court decides on, whether it does or does not cancel the COC of BBM, it will not impact on the work of the House and the Senate. Or, siguro more correctly, if the Senate does, if the Supreme Court does say now, all right, we're going to cancel the COC of BBM, medyo we have a problem there, right? But do you see that happening? That could plunge us in the constitutional crisis, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It depends on the Constitution and in the conviction of the members of the Supreme Court. Remember, they were appointed by the president, the incumbent president, and dito sa Pilipinas, hindi pa yata nawawala yung utang na loob.
Okay,
Kaya iba.
sir, what are you saying? That you think that they should cancel his COC? What are you saying?
Well, ano ito, conjectural lang ito and speculative. Now, I think the Supreme Court should look into the basis of the complaint. Halimbawa lang sabihin nila na ay dapat siya ma-disqualify because he violated the law, because up to now Bongbong, or you do not want to call him Bongbong, BBM, is a convicted criminal. And he is under the judicial records of the judiciary natin, he's a convicted felon. And we should be guided by that.
Yeah. But how do
But
we...
on the other hand,
Sige po, kayo muna.
on the other hand, baka naman sabihin, teka muna, kalaki-laki ng lamang o boto niya, 31 million. You simply want to erase that number of votes, right or wrong, boto yan ng mga tao.
But there
And
is...
I think,
Yes, of course, definitely the fact should be looked into. But there is, like you brought it up yourself, there is that question, 31 million votes for BBM, an overwhelming amount of votes that we've never seen in history. And then, ang laki ng lamang niya kay Lenny. Di ba? So, paano yun Parang, does that make it, parang bang nagiging political question na ito? And then, paano... how will the Supreme Court step into the fray, so-called, di ba? Because people have voted. You have 31 million Filipinos voting for BBM. Less than half of that number voting for the second placer, Lenny. And then the Supreme Court coming in and saying, well, he's a convicted, no, let's cancel his COC. That should have happened before, long before. And then there is also the question, long before he ran for president, he ran for Congress, ran for governor, ran for the Senate. And tuloy-tuloy lang siya. No one questioned him at that point. So, paano to?
Yes. Well, yes, to some extent. To some
Ang
extent,
gulo niyan.
it will be chaotic. Yeah, magulo yan.
Because some will say, dapat ang second placer, dapat si Lenny mag-presidente. Yung iba magsasabi, kung i-disqualify nyo o kung ika-cancel yung COC ni BBM, dapat si Sara kasi siya mag-VP, di ba? O paano na?
Magulo.
Ang gulo
Magulo
nito.
nga yan.
Naku, ito na naman tayong Pilipinas. Paano po yun, sir?
Kaya nga siguro, dapat maganda at mahusay at based on facts, yung magiging analysis ng decision. Kasi the law must be upheld at all times.
Right.
Sabi nga nila doon, di ba sa may mga sinasabi noon na justice should reign, heavens may fall, parang ganyan.
Yes.
Whatever happens, justice should be, parang ganon. Ngayon, kung halimbawa, kasi sa susunod, gagawin na gagawin na
President?
parang president. You can be convicted criminal and then you run for the highest public officials.
But anyway, well, we just need to wrap this up already, Secretary Lutz Barbo. But yun na nga, mauunang matapos ng trabaho ang ang National Board of Canvassers, yung Senate at yung House. Dahil 15 days pa para mag-comment, sabi nga nung Korte Suprema, dun sa petition to cancel yung COC ni BBM. Anyway, sir, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for your time tonight. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or at a family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare. But we can talk about it here at this table on this show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m.